Welcome to today's tutorial. It's about two new concepts in JavaScript that are really important and allow you to realize a lot of your amazing ideas. They're called arrays and loops. And what we will do today is first we're going to have a look at what we are going to build together. Then you should definitely download the exercise files. You can already do this right now. I will include the link under the video or on the ComLab syllabus page. And then we built the following alongside this content outline. Here's a preview of what we'll build. We'll build this website. I prepared some code to get you started. What's going on here is I can click one button to cycle through different greetings. I can click this button to display all the greetings in the system, but I can also add new greetings to the system. When I click push, and now I'm clicking all greetings again, you will see one was added, and also in the cycle, automatically the new greeting shows up too. And I can use a fourth button to take out greetings. That's not planned. We'll make this better as we code. Okay, let's get started. Download the exercise files. Arrays. Well, before we look at arrays, I want to just give a quick overview of the code so we all feel right at home in it. We have an index.html file, which looks complex on the first view, but really it's two boxes. So one is the nav bar, the navigation bar, which does everything up here. So we see here there's one button, another button, an input and a button, which is responsible for this, and yet another button. They're all inside divs because I wanted to have this line in between them to separate them. And each button is already linked to a function that we'll find in the script.js external JavaScript file. Then below this we have another div called main. And in the main we have two parts, the top part and the bottom part, with some text inside as placeholders, which is the top part and the bottom part. And it all looks so pretty because I added some styling in the CSS that you're welcome to study and use to structure your own pages too. Okay, then in the script.js, let's save. In the script.js, we have 3 levels, and these are common, so don't worry. But these are the 3 levels that we are now going to solve together. The first level is for the first button, second level, and these we do in one level, because by then we will be experts already. So let's start right in. Let's study this for a second. We see we have 4 variables here, which is the lesson that we had last week. So each of these variable names carries the string. Then we have another variable that says 1, and we have a function. Let's quickly remind ourselves what we're trying to do in the first level. We are trying to make this button cycle through the greetings that we have. So in other words, every time we press the button, we want to display the next of these greetings. Something like this is done a lot, so I've prepared a little bit. Let's double check. The first button, next greeting, already calls this function, next greeting, which is right here. Let's have and there's some console logging, so let's have a quick look what it console logs at the moment. Maybe I'm going to put this down here today. How about that? Oops. So if I click this button, it says running next greeting. So it runs the function, says current counter value 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is, I already prepared for you a very useful function here, a very useful little logic mechanism that has one variable with a value, and the value increases as many times as we have greetings to display. And I'm console logging this here just so I know better what the code is doing. So now I want to quickly solve this button using the learning from earlier this week, the conditionals. Because really we see the counter variable only ever takes on 4 different values. So we could use an if statement, an if-else statement to ask, is the value 1? Then show the English greeting. Is the value 2? Then show the Chinese. 3, emoji. 4, Spanish. So I'm going to say if, and the condition I want to check is if the counter is equal to 1, then we want to display the value of this variable inside. Let's have a look. It says current greeting placeholder. So this is this part. And we see I already turned this h1 tag into having an ID. So we can look for the ID current greeting and exchange the inner HTML, as we did in the introduction to JavaScript class. So if counter equals 0, we want to get element by ID current greeting and set the inner HTML to the English greeting. See if that works. If I click it, it says current value equals 1 and the greeting now is hello. If I click again, nothing happens because this if statement now, this condition in this if statement is not evaluated to be true. Counter is not 1 anymore. That's why nothing happens. And even if something would happen, we would be replacing the English greeting with the English greeting. Instead, I'm going to say else if counter equals 2, Chinese greeting. If counter equals 3, emoji greeting. And do look at this if-else statement I prepared down here, because this is responsible that we actually start back at 1 once we reached 4. So that really allows the cycling through the greetings. So the last greeting we have here is that. Okay, let's try it. Next greeting. Oh, something doesn't work here. Oh, bad error on my part. This sometimes happens, and what this does is it does not check if counter is equal to 2, but it actually sets the value of counter to 2. So that's not a good idea. 2 equal signs. Next greeting, next greeting, next greeting. And after hola, it goes back to hello. So after hola, it goes back to hello. And that is because of this if statement here. Okay, now what we will do next is we will learn about arrays. I want to point out one thing here. We are using variable names to refer to these greetings. But we would all agree that these all are greetings. So it's this website, when you ask what is this website about, you wouldn't say this website is about the English, Chinese, emoji, and Spanish greeting, but you would say this website is about greetings, right? And for cases like this, we want to use arrays, because arrays are really useful and they let us assign a collection of values to one variable name. So we don't need an own variable name for every single greeting. We just want to have one collection that's called greetings. And inside this collection, we have all the greetings that we may have. And maybe we'll add some later or not, because this website is, again, not about the English greeting and the Chinese greeting and the emoji greeting and the Spanish greeting, but about greetings in general. So let's build our first array. I just said it's a collection of values that is assigned to one variable name. So the first thing to do when building an array is to create a variable name, just like always. And then on this side is where we actually build the array. An array is always associated with square brackets. When you see square brackets, in 99.237% of the cases, you're dealing with arrays in JavaScript. In this array, we fill in our values. So now each individual value does not have its own array name, variable name, but what they do have is they have their own unique spot inside the greetings array. And the square brackets are not only associated with building an array, but also with how to use an array. Because how you want to use an array, of course, you ultimately do want the individual values, right? So you do want to retrieve values out of an array. And the way you do this is to use square brackets and an index number. So you're pointing at, hey, I want the third element in the array. I want the second element in the array. So this would look like this. You name the array, use a square bracket, and point into the array. The 0, this is a very important point to remember, and I'll get back to it later too. The 0 points to the first value. In programming, 0 always refers to the first. So to see what this does, let's console log. Let's make a nice console log here. Console log. I'm known to make pretty console logs, so I welcome you to join me. I'm going to do this like this. This is a string, and I use a comma. The reason I do this is that I can use the console very nicely and know exactly what's going on. Oh, not this one. Oh, here it is, right? Greetings of 0 is hello. Let's try this with the other ones too. Greetings of 1, let's see. And 3. So now we see greetings 0 is hello, greetings 1 is ni hao, greetings 2 is, you don't hear how I'm waving right now, and greetings 3 is hola. Okay, now we can take care of our if statement, because we only needed our if statement because we had to deal with different cases, and based on the different cases use different variable names. But now we always use the same variable names, and we retrieve values from it using this number, right? And maybe you remember that every time I click next greeting, we have our counter that has a value. Counter equals 1, 2, 3. So here comes a suggestion. How about we copy this line, because it's always the same element on the page, the inner HTML of which we want to change. And now we're going to change it to greetings. And in greetings, this points to the first, this to the second, third, and so on. So we will change it to greetings counter, because we know that counter always takes a different value every time we click this button. Let's try this. Now if I click greeting, ni hao, wave, hola, undefined. Now this is the quiz question. Why is it undefined now? What if I click again? Ni hao. So these are 3 values we're getting, and then we get an undefined. Now if we look, and this is the value, the very great value of the console for us programmers. If we look here, it says current counter value is 4. So undefined seems to come up when counter is 4, meaning greeting, we're getting the element out of greetings that has the index 4. And if we remind ourselves, arrays are 0 index, meaning we have 4 elements, but to get them we take 0, 1, 2, 3. The element with the index 4 does not exist. So I'm going to reiterate, arrays are 0 indexed. They always start counting at 0. So to adjust for that, we could, let's see. Well, first of all, we want to start our counter at 0. Then we want to increase it as long as it is smaller than 4. I think that is still right. No, we want to increase it as long as it's smaller than 3. And then we want to set it back to 0. So really now we just shifted from the counter taking these values, notice, to the counter is now taking on these values. So we made a little shift, and now let's have a look. Oh, this is even worse. Oh, I have the 4 in here, and I told you the 4 does not work. So let's put the counter back in here. Hello, ni hao, waving, hola, hello. So now this runs very smoothly. But let's we can get rid of our old variables because we know a better method now. Let's you know, I'm from Germany, so I would like to add my greeting too. And of course now it still only goes until hola, because the counter changes at 3 back to 0. So I could increase down here, right? So now this would work again, showing us 5 greetings. But now I want to add another one, because why not? And I would need to change down here again. So this is not convenient, because I always need to remember which spots in my code do I need to change every time I add a value to an array, because arrays are really built to be dynamic, right? We might well add and take away values from arrays because they are collections. What we can do instead here is we can use a property that every array ever has. We can ask, hey, greetings array, what is your length? And this will check how long the array is and automatically put this value here. Meaning now, no matter how long our array is, counter will always increase until we reach the length of the array. Let's try that. Hello, ni hao, wave, hola, hello, hi. Undefined. Why is it undefined? Counter value is 6. Now let's have a look. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll give you a second to guess why this is. If you ask what is the length of an array, the length will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because there's 6 elements. Meaning here it says 6. But if we point into an array, we don't need to point until 6. We need to point until 5, right? Because 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So something you see very often is that you will retrieve the length of the array and subtract 1 to account for exactly this problem. Now I can cycle through them all. The last thing that I don't like is that it says placeholder here and only then starts. So instead, outside of the function, because the function is only called when we click the button, I would like to make a quick adjustment. That is, the first time this JavaScript file is being read by the browser, I'll set the greeting to the first greeting in the array. And then I want the counter to start at 1, so that my first click sets it to the second value. Now, we can't even see it. If we refresh, it's already at hello. And now it cycles through nicely. Great, okay. Before we move on, I'll quickly want to show you 2 summarizing slides. Arrays. Arrays is a list. An array is a list or collection of items. They have a length property that tells us how many elements are in the array. And arrays can contain any data type, number, string, or objects. Right now we used an array with strings, but they could just as well be numbers or even a mix of numbers and strings. In JavaScript, one array can contain many different data types. I don't think that is often needed, but you may try it. And an array can even contain another array. So you will run into things that look like that. The other very important thing I wanted to point or to remind you of is that arrays index start from 0, and the last array is the total number of elements in the array, aka array.length minus 1. All right, we graduated from the level 1 and have a little idea of what arrays are. Now for the next level, let's remind ourselves what the next button does. The next button, if we click it, displays all greetings down here. So we will need to create elements inside our JavaScript, as we have learned in the very first JavaScript class. Let's have a quick look. The second button is already connected to a function. So what we want to do in this function, we want to create a p tag for every greeting that we have. And then put the greet tag into the div with the array all greetings. Okay, let's try this. You can move down to level 2. In here, it already says running show all greetings. Let's see if that is true. If I click that, yes, it runs show all greetings. By the way, this number means the console doesn't want to log this many times because it's always the same thing. So it just means this has been written to the console 30 times. Now below here I prepared a little bit of code. You can get rid of that, that's for sure. And the rest you can comment out. The way to comment out code is by highlighting the lines you want to comment in or out, and then click Command /. That is Command plus this symbol. Not this symbol, that's a question mark. This symbol. This symbol. That's how we comment blocks of code. Very useful. Okay, so let's study what this 3 lines do. It creates a variable and creates an element, a p element. Then it sets the inner HTML of the variable and appends it as a child. So it puts it inside another element, which is the element with the ID all greetings. Let's see if this works. If I click the all greetings button, then this text gets appended to the all greetings div. Now, if we want this button to show all our greetings, we basically just have to replace the text with, how do we get the first value out of greetings? Like that. So we can do this. Let's see if it works. All greetings, hello, right here. And now we could just copy this. Let's see how many elements are on our array, and then let's speed this up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we already have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And now we need to name these variables differently to get the first element, the second element. And don't forget this 2 and this 2. And then this is 3. Okay, be careful when you do this because it's very easy to make mistakes here. 4, 4, 4, and 3, and 5, 5, 5, and 4, and 6, 6, 6, and 5. I think this will work. Let's test it. In fact, I'll leave it up for 2 more seconds in which you can pause this video if you need more time to finish the writing. All right, now I'm going to test it, clicking on all greetings. Great. So these are all our greetings. But this was no fun, and there was a lot of room to make mistakes. Programmers are not only lazy, and I realize almost everything we learn in class seems to be about writing less code, which is true. We do not want to write a lot of code. We want to be effective. Programmers are not only lazy and want to write as little code as possible, but they also know that writing less code to solve problems leaves less room to make errors. So in come loops. What are loops? When do we want to use loops? Let's have a quick look at a slide. When to use a loop? Use a loop when you want to run the same code multiple times, and also run the same code with small variations multiple times. Now, if you ask me, this should be a solution that is perfect for our problem here. We run exactly the same code with with very small variation each time. So let's try to use one of these loops. And to do that, let's comment all of this out. Again, command /, because this doesn't look nice. And I'm sorry I made you write it, but it was worth it, I think. Let's try to use one of these loops, and in the slide we can find out how to build them. Let's have a quick look. This is a for loop. The for loop is one kind of loop. There's multiple loops in programming and also in JavaScript. But the for loop is by far the most used one, and this is also the one that we'll be using in this class and that we're going to learn now. So this is the basic syntax, even though it looks still a little bit cryptic. We have a for loop, then a parentheses. So this looks much like an if statement that you definitely know, and then we have a curly bracket where the action goes on, which means this is where the code that we want to run many times goes on. Here, where in an if statement we would have our condition, in the for loop we have initialization, condition, increment or decrement. Now let's see what this means, or let's see an example. Let I is the first thing, so this would be the initialization, which looks like initializing a variable. The second thing is a condition. It says I smaller 10. And the third thing is an increment or decrement. Here it says I++, which is short for increasing the value of a variable by 1. Okay, so this is set the initial value, establish a conditional something, and the last one is the increment. I think the best way to remember is to think of from, until, increment. What does that mean? Let's remind ourselves. Loops are things that run many times. So from means what's our initial status when we start looping? How should how should that status change, the increment, each loop? And how should the status look like? What should the status look like for us to stop the loop? So from, until, increment. And this will make more sense in a little bit. Let's try this. Let's try this ourselves. For, so this is the basic syntax. For now, my action will just be looping. And remember here we had from /initialize until, oops, sorry, this must be a semicolon, and increment. So let's just try the same one as in the slides. We initialize I to 0, that is the from, until I smaller 10, increment I equals I plus 1, which is the same as to say I plus equals 1 or I plus plus. These are all the same. So now let's see what's happening when we click the All Greetings button. It says looping, and it does that 10 times. So what you really need to do is you just need to remember this exact syntax. Because if you remember that, then for loops will ever be the same. You just remember this, and whatever you put into this value is how many times your loop will run. So really, in most cases, you can copy this exact piece of code and just change the second value, which is the until value, to determine how often the loop should run. Let's see how often our loop should run. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 times. 6 times should the loop run. For each time, what do we want to do? We want to create an element, set its inner HTML to the next greeting, append element to the page. Let's try this. Oops. Create an element. Let new element be document create element key. Okay. Now set its inner HTML to the next greeting. So the next greeting means in the first loop we want the first value out of the array, in the second value, third, the third, fourth, fifth, sixth. So to do this, one solution that we have that we're already familiar with from how we solved other problems would be to make a counter variable. Let's try this. So outside of the loop, I can make a new variable called let yet another counter be 0. Then we set the inner HTML to greetings. Greetings, another counter. And in the end, we, at the very end, we increase the counter, plus equals 1. And we still need to append the element to the page. So we copy this line and append new element. Also, what I want to do in this loop is to log a little bit. Looping not new element, my bad. This. So let's see what's going on. If I click the button, first of all, it says looping, this variable is 0. So this loops the first time and another counter is 0. So greetings gets the first element, puts it on the page and appends it to the page. Then increases the counter, the very end of the first loop, and loops again. And now another counter is 1 because the variable is, it took on a new value here. Let's see. Another counter is 1 in the second loop, 2 in the third loop, 3 in the fourth loop, 4 in the fifth loop, 5 in the sixth loop. That's why it successfully gets all the elements out of the array. Now, here comes yet another way to write less code. This was a trick too. I always play tricks on you because even though it looks so already very busy because it's necessary for the for loop, but it is also a variable that we may use inside the loop. So this is very useful. Let's have a quick look. Log I is see what I is each loop. Click the button. And here we see another counter is 0, I is also 0. Another counter is 1, I is also 1. Another counter is 2, I is also 2. So, in other words, loops, you know, they always iterate, and almost every time we use codes, we want to know which iteration are we currently in order to do things like that. And that's one reason why we have access to this I. I believe I stands for iterator. That's why, you know, this could be any variable you want. We could even set this to be another counter and then get rid of that. That would work. But I highly recommend you to always name this I, because this is the standard and it stands for iterator, so it's easy to remember. So what we learn is that we can get rid of another counter and use the variable I, and we don't even have to manually increase it because our for loop does that for us. So I was commenting all these out now, but in fact I want to delete them because this is a much, much, much better solution. So now if I click all greetings, it works, and it also works. I don't have to, yes I do. If I take an element out, see what happens now. Undefined. Why is it undefined? Because the loop loops 6 times anyway. And this is the exact same problem that we ran into here. So right now we would like to loop 5 times. So we say greetings.length. You might now be wondering, why am I not using -1? It's a good point. It makes perfect sense if you do the logic that I is 0. Like this number only means how often times it loops. But my advice actually is not to necessarily go through it so precisely, but notice, you know, this is often a point where you might want to double check. So this goes hello, ni hao, wave, hola, hello. And this is all of them, so it works. So you know you don't need the -1. While if you know, by instinct, where was I? If you by instinct use the -1, I highly recommend to double check and notice, oh, only 4 show, meaning I need to loop 1 more time, meaning the -1 can go. So you should always double check. Of course, I also recommend you to do the logic and think, okay, the for loop runs as many times as I is smaller than 5, meaning 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 times. And this is very useful to know that we can just use other variables within this for loop declaration up here. So yes, that is that part. Of course, the placeholders here don't look good. So how about we either delete them or comment them out in the HTML. So now there's nothing. If I click all greetings, there's 5 greetings, and it's the same 5 greetings that I can cycle through on our first button. And hold on, let's quickly review what we just learned. Arrays let us assign a collection of values to one variable name. They let us retrieve values by saying the array name and an index number in square brackets. And arrays indices start at 0, very important. With array.length, we can ask, how long is this array? Loops. Loops are great if you want to run the same code multiple times. This is the shorthand to remember for loops, from, until, increment. And I, as we've just learned, is a variable. We can use that in the code, in the loop. Okay, next up, after we graduated from level 2, we are in the final level where we learn array methods with the name push and splice. Let's quickly check. Here's a function called PushGreeting that is already connected to the button called push. And the button called push is right next to an input with the ID new greeting. So these are these two. And in the function you will see, I have a little bit of code for you. Oops. Which you also, the same code you have already used 2 lessons ago in the video about variables. What this does is it gets the input box by its ID and asks what is the value of the input box. New greeting is that. Let's try this. So right now when I click push, it just says I'm running the function. But if I put something in, like salut, and push, oh, I have to save because I uncommented. If I click salut and push, it says new greeting is salut. Okay, now let's just try this push thing. We know that push seems to be a method of an array. Whenever we say methods, it's most likely something like this, array.push. It's a function that belongs to something else. These are called methods. Our array is called greetings. Push, what we're going to do is we put our new greeting into push, and then to see what's going on, we say greetings contains these values. A nice console log. Let's see what's going on now. Salut, push. New greeting is salut. Greetings contains these values. Hello, ni hao, wave, hola, hallo, salut. In fact, now if I push again, it contains 2 saluts. And that's as simple as the push method is. You call out your array, you put the array name down, dot push, and push whatever new value you want into the array. Now there's 2 things I want to do to improve our website. Let's first, one nice thing would be, look at this. If I say salut push, really this should disappear, right? That's good. That's good interaction design right there. So to make this disappear, we can just set the value of this element to 0 after we have pushed the value that it used to have to our array. So this now feels much nicer. If I say push, now it gets empty again. That is one thing. The other thing is, look at this. I say all greetings, that's these greetings. Now I'm pushing salut to the array. Of course, this is not updated yet. I'm clicking all greetings again, and now it puts all of these down. So what I want to do is I actually want to always clear out this whole section before we display all greetings. So I'm going to make a little flashback to level 2. So I want to clear, so in this loop we're putting in all the p tags for every greeting. So before that, what we can do is we can select the all greetings div. And here's a new usage for you to use inner HTML. You know inner HTML to change the text inside inside tags. Well, what if the text is just an empty string that essentially just clears out this div? Now, if we display all greetings, it's like this. If I add salut to the array using the push method, and I display all greetings, it displays all of them again. It looks like it's only adding this, but it actually clears out the whole thing and adds the whole array. And now something that I didn't plan, but I do want to show you just how you can experiment yourself. This function, we know, puts the whole array onto the page. Now check out, if I put this function, right now it's called when we press the button, we could also call it inside another function to make the usability or the way our website feels really good, because now I can display all greetings. And check this out. If I add a new greeting and click push, it now seems as though the website is directly reacting to it. Now this is a whole new level, isn't it? I'm going to comment this out just because I don't want to go too crazy, but you can leave it in because it's really cool. Okay, on to the last part in the last level, Splice. Splice is a function that does the opposite of push, but it does it a little bit more complicated. Push always pushes a new element to the last, to the end of an array. Splice lets us define, or forces us to define a little bit more which element we want to take out of an array. To understand how Splice works, I want to show you a few slides. They're here. Splice subtracts one or more items from an array. Splice always needs two arguments. The index, we already know what an index is, to the start at the existing array. The number of elements to remove. Now here's a good example. Here's a long array and it says splice 7, 1. Now what this means is it will go to the element with the index 7, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, this one, and remove one element, meaning we would expect this element to be removed. And that's in fact what it does. On the other hand, if we have this, it will go to the 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and now remove 1, 2. So this is always from where to remove, how many elements to remove. 2 elements are removed. Okay, let's try this. We could try greetings, splice. Let's just try anything. We can try 1, 2, just because that's how we count 2, right? To understand what it does, let's copy this console log here that just console logs the whole array. So now, the moment we click splice, oh, greeting, the array is called greetings. The moment we hit splice, now what did it do? It would be good to know how the array looked before. Do we print the array in level 2 already? I think that would be a good idea. I'm going to comment this here quickly. Just so that now on our page I can first click all greetings. And we see hello, ni hao, wave, hola, hello. Now if I click splice, we see hello is still there, ni hao and waving hand were dismissed. So it went to the 1 element with index 1, 0, 1, and then took out 2 elements, these 2. So to take out the first element, we could do this. Let's try that. All greetings shows these 5. Under the hood, we assume that splice was just removed. So if I click all greetings, hello is gone. Now, because we have a cool website, we can directly push again, and hello is at the bottom. Now, quiz question, how could we always remove the last element in our array? So right now, this would be the element with the index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. But now it would be the element with the index 5. Drum roll. We can do this exact same thing as we did in level 1 and 2 to ask greetings array dot length. And let's try this first, because I just taught you to work this way. We say all greetings 5 once, splice. Now the greetings array is just completely empty. Oh, my bad. It went to the first element and then took out the whole array. Of course, that empties the whole array. What I wanted to try is go to the last element and extract 1. Let's see if this works. All greetings is 5 elements. Now I click splice. It's still 5 elements. Why is that? This goes to the element with the index 5. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. There is no index 5. So here is a case where we need -1. Now it will always take out the last element. And that is the end of this tutorial. But I do want to bring in these functions again because I think it improves the way this website feels very much. So let's now enjoy our website. Here we cycle through greetings. Here we display them all. But here we can push things to the array and they're automatically added. And here we can splice things and they're automatically taken away. Please look at all the slides of this lab and ask your instructor any questions you may have. And I hope this was helpful. Bye-bye.